Further examination of the brain gives us insight into why we would use a trauma-informed approach instead of more traditional methods of behavioral intervention. The neocortex is divided into left and right hemispheres. The left hemisphere is considered our conscious processor and is responsible for language, analytical thought, logic and reasoning, and reality. The right hemisphere is the subconscious processor. That hemisphere is responsible for nonverbal information or pictures, intuition, imagination, random processing, and fantasy. Brain research has shown that the emotion of fear is processed in the right hemisphere, and trauma is all about fear. When memories of traumatic and emotional events reside in the subconscious level without awareness, we know that they are residing in the right hemisphere. Now, when those memories are triggered by associated connections, such as events or words or feelings, the right hemisphere dominates in its ability to act here and now. As you can see in the diagram, the right hemisphere has a direct connection to the body in that it is connected to the limbic system and the brainstem. So when there is a reaction to a traumatic event or experience or a response, a student is hardwired then to react and go into a self-preservation or self-protective mode. This might look like bad behavior to some people, but in reality, it's simply that student's normal response according to how their body is programmed or their brain is programmed. So when we understand the brain and the brain functioning of typically developing students compared to students who have experienced developmental trauma, we understand that the students' issues are not behavioral. They are, in fact, regulatory. So again, we need to get them to a place where they are regulated and they can move from that bottom up to a top-down control. It's important to also note how the body ties into trauma response. And while these responses originate in the brain, and that's why we want to examine the brain functioning, the brain is responsible for sending those systems to the body. So it is the body that takes out these actions, most often a self-preservation action, such as fight or flight. There's also a third response, which is the freeze response. And so the most important point regarding these three responses is that they are all automatic responses. They're not determined by mindful considerations at the level of the neocortex or the outer part of the brain. It's not about the student making a better choice or choosing to do something differently. This is biological and the way that the child is hardwired. So when we implement consequences, we're just igniting more of these responses, and because the consequences are seen as a threat to the child. So again, the solution relies in calming the brain in order to move back to a state of calm and safety, and move the body back to a state of calm and safety.